Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a comparison between the Honorview 20 and the Galaxy S10. Which one should you think of or consider if you're looking to upgrade your device? Let's check it out. So here we have in front of us both the Honorview 20 and the Galaxy S10. I want to mention to you guys though that the S10 does have an S10e model and an S10 Plus that are also available in the market. The variant that we're looking at today is the Snapdragon 855 version. There is an Exynos 9820 that's available in the European markets. As far as the Kirin 980 supported here, it's pretty much the only chipset in any market that you're able to pick up, the Honorview 20. Now, as far as specifications, we're going to start off by looking at what we have in the box. Now, out of the box, the S10 comes out with the Snapdragon 855, 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of internal storage, expandable with the micro SD card that's supported at the top. And depending on the market, you're able to pick up a version that has either a single SIM or a dual SIM. We have triple cameras in the back, two 12-megapixel sensors, and a third ultra-wide. So we have a standard focal length, a telephoto lens, as well as an ultra-wide lens that's capable of providing us really wide shots. We have a heart rate monitor, a dual-tone LED flash, wireless charging, and reverse wireless charging here on the back. On the right, what we have here is a 48-megapixel sensor. This is one of the best Sony sensors on the market right now, and it actually does work great on this device. Next to that, we have a time-of-flight sensor that's enabling us to be able to play basically imaging games or anything that requires us to be able to basically use this kind of like a Kinect, which is really functional and very fun. And of course, a dual-tone LED flash. What you notice we also have here is a fingerprint sensor, standard fingerprint sensor, and it's not present here anymore on the Galaxy devices, as on the S10 and the S10 Plus, that is actually present directly within the display, where on the S10e, that power button on the right side is also doubling as a fingerprint sensor. But again, that's depending on the model that you're getting. We don't have wireless charging or reverse wireless charging, so we do have a glass back, and you can pretty much see the design and the aesthetic differences between these two devices. Honor definitely did go in the extra step here to put in that nice little V shape, and they've been doing that with most of their devices. So the device is definitely stunning and definitely will make people look at your device. And of course, we have AI vision and Honor branding, Samsung and Galaxy S10. This is a Verizon version. We don't see the Verizon naming on any of the devices, even the T-Mobile or AT&T, but just keep in mind that you're able to pick this up for most of your carriers. With the View 20, you'll be able to check it out. I'll give you guys a link in the description, of course, to be able to check it out over at Amazon. Now, on the left side of the device, we have a Bixby button that's remappable. We also have a volume rocker. On the View 20, we don't have anything other than the SIM tray that supports 2 SIM cards, no SD card expansion here. Switching over to the front, we're looking at a 6.4-inch IPS LCD panel that's supported with a 25-megapixel front-facing sensor to be able to give us a great experience as far as taking pictures. And the camera itself also supports not only AI, let's go ahead and switch over to the front, we have AI and we also have HDR on the sensor on the front with the Honorview 20. On the S10, what we have here is a 6.1-inch display. Again, the S10e has a 5.8 and the S10 Plus will have a 6.4-inch display. It is supported with the front-facing camera placed this on the right as opposed to what we have here on the left. The other thing, as I mentioned to you guys in the beginning, the fingerprint sensor is present under the display. It's a 3D ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. The 10 and the 10 Plus support that, but the 10e does not support that, as it has that, as I mentioned to you guys before, in the power button. Now, switching over to the top, we start seeing some differences. We have the SIM card with that supports an SD card and a SIM card here on the S10 with one of the microphones. We have the 3.5mm headphone jack, an IR blaster for remote control, as well as one of the microphones that are built in there. And then switching over to the right side, this is where we see the power button, and of course we have the power button and the volume rocker present on the right side of the View 20. And on the bottom, we have the bottom firing speakers, USB-C, and the 3.5mm headphone jack, and of course microphones for the cameras. The other thing I want to mention to you guys is that the S10 does support stereo speakers using the top earpiece, where the Honorview 20 does not. It's a single firing speaker, and for the stereo experience, you pretty much have to use the 3.5mm headphone jack that you have at the top. Now, looking over at the front-facing sensors, what we have here is 2 different sensors. We have a 25-megapixel sensor on the front here, we're using the View 20, and a 10-megapixel sensor on the front here on the S10. The S10 and the S10e both have a single sensor, and the S10 Plus has a secondary sensor for depth perception. So for the most part, all 3 devices have one camera. The S10 Plus is supposed to just have better images when it comes to bokeh effect or anything relating to depth information. But what we have here essentially is 2 sensors at the opposite side of the display, and it comes down to personal preference. If you like to have it on the top left, you can go definitely with the View 20. And if you like to have it on the top right, which is again similar with the 10e and the 10 Plus, you can go with the S10. And you can definitely see it right there. The present is definitely a little bit smaller, ever so slightly. But again, we're looking at basically a really good implementation both on LCD and OLED. This is pretty much going to come down to personal preference, and the reality of the matter is both of these cameras for the most part disappear in the background after using your device. You're getting an almost entire display view here of both of them. Again, 6.1 to 6.4. You can go all the way to 6.4 here, but it does require you to go to the S10 Plus. That's close to about $1,000. So as far as actual overall performance and what you can do from this device, both of these devices are great for gaming, the everyday usability. Both of them support 60 frames per second, support gaming on Fortnite, so that's one of the other things you want to be aware of. The View 20 and the Note 9 was one of the first two devices to support it, and the S10 line of devices are also supporting it, and definitely very smooth. There's no question that we have enough horsepower to be able to play the latest AAA games on mobile devices and not have an issue. Connectivity, as far as LTE and non-LTE, both of them will support high-speed connections. Now, the S10 is specifically made for the US market, and the View 20 will work in the US market, and you are going to be able to enjoy it using on either AT&T, T-Mobile, any GSM carrier that you have in the US. So that's one of the main benefits that you have. It's very flexible, and you just have to switch over a SIM card. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is the fingerprint sensor. As we talked about at the beginning, we have an ultrasonic 3D fingerprint sensor here present on the S10. So let's go ahead and lock the device, unlock it. I put my finger, it unlocks the device, I'm able to get in. It's not slow and it's not super fast, but it definitely is good. It is pretty reliable once you're using the actual display. So you notice right there, I unlocked it even when the screen was off. One of the things you can do here is the same thing. What we're using here is a regular standard fingerprint sensor. I can lock it, unlock it, lock it, lock it, one more time, and here quickly. So from the lock screen, when it's on, this is how quick it is. It's just right away, no animations, no issues. And what we're getting here is similar experience. The main difference, of course, is that you do need to remember where the fingerprint sensor is, and there's no way of using the back sensor or anything in the back to be able to initiate it. Now, we do have an always-on display here on the S10, as this is an OLED panel. The Honorview 20 being an LCD display does not have an always-on display, but Honor does support always-on display on any of their OLED offerings. So just keep in mind, if it's an LCD panel, for the most part, always-on display will drain the battery as the entire display is on, where on an OLED panel, these are pretty much the only pixels turned on this entire display. When it comes to camera capabilities, both of these devices are able to recording 4K video. It's 4K 60 frames per second on the back sensor, 4K 30 on the front-facing sensor. We have 4K 30 on the back sensor and 1080p maximum on the front-facing sensor. Both supporting HDR. Now again, because we have triple cameras on the back here, we have three different types of focal length. We have the standard focal length, the telephoto lens, as well as the ultra-wide lens. And what that enables us to do is the ability of actually taking images and just basically zoom in or take an actual entire view. So an example would be here. I have this image that I just took over the parking garage where I usually park my car, and you can see this is a standard focal length. Nothing wrong with that. But if we switch over, other direction, you can see that with the ultra wide, I'm able to fit so much more. You're able to see the ledge over here, what's going on the right side, as well as the background, and we're able to zoom in and still not lose any of the details that we normally expect, and still get an amazing image. It's very nice and it's very good, and I feel like between the cameras that we have in the back, the standard focal length and the ultra wide are definitely the big winners here, and those are the two that you get with the S10e, which is, if you're considering getting that device, that will be one of the really cool benefits. The telephoto, although great, doesn't always work for us, and for the most part, I think most of us would appreciate an ultra wide over a telephoto any day. That's compared to what we get with the Honorview 20. Now, the Honorview 20 has by far one of the biggest megapixel sensors on the camera to date. It is using one of Sony's latest sensors, the 48 megapixel sensors in the back, and of course what we're getting here, even though it's a single sensor, we're still able to get great images. The camera is able to shoot a mode, and we'll go ahead and switch over. I'm going to turn off AI. Not only have 48 megapixels, we also have 48 megapixel ultra clarity, and that's an even step higher than what we normally get, and that gives us the ability of getting super sharp, very nice images that you're able to take and then zoom in after. So you can actually take in an image that is super nice, super big, and not have to worry about zooming in and cropping in later. It's like when you record a video in 4K and you want to crop into a 1080p shot, your 1080p shot cropped on a 4K video would look as good as a standard 1080p video. So you need to keep that in mind whenever you're taking an image. The one difference, of course, is that it does require a slightly longer exposure, as it actually needs to process the image, and of course that just gives us a much better image. So here's a quick example of an ultra clarity image after the rain a few days ago, and of course what we have here is the ability of zooming into that image, not losing any of the clarity or the information that we have in there, and just basically be able to frame our subject the way we want it, and then do some post-processing. On top of the fact that this image on its own, you can see right there the exposure for the foreground and the background was done really nicely using the MPU. And we also have scene optimization here built in on the S10. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about is the notification LED, and if you've used it in the past and you're a big fan of it, then unfortunately the S10, S10e, and S10 Plus no longer have that. They went away with that, and they pretty much want us to rely either using the edge lighting that's built into this, of course, or the always on display. Let's go and turn it off one more time. And of course, we have the always on display that gives us access to these notifications. But to get these notifications, you'd either have to touch the display or actually have it in your hand to be able to see it. The edge lighting does work, and it works great if your device is flipped over and you can see that light away. But unfortunately, it only indicates it once, and after some time, you no longer know if there's any notifications. And the notification LED actually is ever so nicely placed in the earpiece at the top, something that I feel like the S10 could have done and actually kept that feature built into our devices. But from what I understand, the S10 will hopefully be getting a notification LED ring that goes around the camera as part of an update. And as you saw right there, the always on display turns off after some time if the device is sitting on the table, where the LED will still blink whenever a new notification comes in, and you're able to know exactly that you have some messages being, waiting for you there. So depending if you're a fan of it or not, if you're a fan of it, definitely the View 20 gets it. If you're not a fan of it and you're okay with it, for the most part, the S10 is definitely going to be good for you. When it comes to day-to-day activity and performance, both of these devices are not going to disappoint. They both have very fast processors. They have enough optimizations within the UI, so basically between One UI and Magic UI, and we also have enough RAM to be able to compensate for the needs that you have. You can start at 6 gigs of RAM on both of these models and go all the way up to 12 gigabytes of RAM on the S10 with the S10 Plus ceramic model, and 8 gigs of RAM on the S10 within the View 20 Mochino version, which essentially is their higher end model. Storage-wise, you can go from 128 to 256 on the View 20, from 128 all the way to basically 1 terabyte again on the S10 Plus ceramic edition. That's really like the $1,500, the best of the best of the S10s. But when you start comparing them together, realistically, both the performance of the Snapdragon 855 and the Kirin 980 are very comparable, and it's basically been many tests that have been done out there to provide that. I've even done a comparison on my channel showcasing the difference between the Mate 20 Pro that runs the same chipset with 6 gigs of RAM, comparing that to the S10 Plus that was running 8 gigs of RAM with the Snapdragon 855. And the difference between the two was literally in mere seconds, and I'm talking about 3 to 4 seconds. Not 10 to 20 to 30 or 60 seconds. But at the end of the day, when we talk about actual daily usage, I've been using the View 20 ever since January at CES when I picked up my device. It's still as fast, the battery life is still very long, and the camera performance is solid. We've had optimizations with the time of flight sensor that we actually have now games for it. As far as the Snapdragon 855 with the S10, I've had this device for over 3 weeks. And I have to say, comparing it to other devices in the past, like even the Note 9, the S9 Plus, One UI works and looks great. It is definitely optimized to work with 6 gigs of RAM all the way to 12 gigs of RAM. The price point is really where it's going to start getting a little bit different there. The View 20 starts at $550, goes to $650, and that's the maximum, the 8256 model, Mochino model. The base model is the 6128, and it still runs very fast. On the S10, we start at $750 with the S10e, 6 gigs of RAM, 128 gig model. That's the most basic model of all the models that they offer. And it takes you all the way up to $1,500 with a ceramic, 12 gigs, 1 terabyte of internal storage, and of course the S10 Plus. Not to say that those are not great features, but I'm just looking at it that if you're getting into upgrading your device, and money is a factor, and of course it always is a factor, I think the View 20 offers you a great bang for the buck comparison to what you get with the S10. I'm not saying it's a better device than the S10, and I'm not saying the S10 is better than the View 20, because it depends on what you need. Sensors are obviously different, but we definitely have the same implementation on the front-facing display. It's a punch hole sensor, built in, one on the left and one on the right, and it comes down to basically personal preference. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of the View 20 and the S10 devices? Obviously, both of these devices are very nice, they're very fast, they're very different in price point, but they're very comparable when it comes down to performance. I'd like to hear from you guys, and definitely will look forward to talking to you guys there. Thank you very much for the support. Like and subscribe as usual, and make sure you check out my channel and make sure you subscribe to this channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.